So, the Premier League season is continuing to roll on, and in my opinion, Leeds United have been proven right in one very, very, very key part of their pre season decision making. So, I'm just going to have a little bit of a chat about that. Might be a little bit of a shorter video than normal, I'm not entirely sure. I'm working on some new bits based on the various bits of feedback that YouTube are giving, but I'm going to get right into it. In essence, if you have a look along the Premier League right now, there are clubs that have stuck with their managers and clubs that have gotten rid, or clubs that have made weird decisions around it rather than just sticking with the status quo. Coming into this season, a lot of Leeds United fans were worried and scared and thinking, I don't know if we should necessarily keep Daniel Farke. I don't know if he's got the technical flexibility. I don't know if he's the kind of manager that we need. He's not proven himself in the Premier League in the past. But the 49ers stuck with him anyway. They quashed the rumours of him potentially leaving very, very, very quickly and ultimately just let him do his job over the summer. And he did his job fairly well. He got the majority of the players that he wanted in. The players that he didn't get in weren't necessarily his fault because we hit the PSR ceiling before we got to a right winger, and that's on the recruitment team rather than Daniel Farke. And then we get into the season itself, where that tactical flexibility sort of began to prove itself, in which Daniel Farke changes the system, goes to a 4-3-3, which is a lot more structured at the back, it's a lot more structured in midfield, and it made sure that we're hard to break down. Currently, defensively, we are like the 5th best team in the league, well, based on XG, so we're conceding relatively few chances. It's just at the top of the pitch we've got the problem, but we know what that problem is. That's a recruitment issue rather than a management issue. Sorry about that, fun little hiccup. But I think a lot of this has mainly stemmed from the idea that we did put that trust in our manager. And then you look across the rest of the league, and this is the reason I feel a little bit vindicated in the fact that we've stuck with him and things are going in the right direction. Because let's be completely honest with each other, we're not a team that's getting rolled over. We're at the very least fighting in every single one of our matches, and if you want to argue that we're a team that looks like we're playing badly, you can try and do that, but you won't find many people that agree with you. And then you look across the rest of the league, and I'm going to use 2 clubs as examples, because I think we did the right thing in committing to Daniel Farke as our manager, but not like extending contracts or anything. One team made that key mistake, and one team made the opposite mistake. The team that made that key mistake was specifically Wolves, because right before Leeds United played against Wolves, when Wolves were without a win, I don't know if they even had any points in the league at that point, they were just getting rolled over very, very consistently, they decided, actually, we need to extend the contract of our manager. Now, there's an argument that this makes a little bit of sense from some perspectives. So a lot of Wolves fans, a lot of Wolves fans were of the opinion that, well, he's a decent enough manager, he made sure we didn't go down last season, but then again, if you have a look at what the league table actually looked like, they weren't going to go down regardless because the bottom 3 clubs were so dreadful. And then, in spite of a dreadful, dreadful start to this season, you got a situation where they just offered him a contract anyway. A lot of the theory that flew around at that point was he didn't get the players that he wanted in the window. We know that Wolves let a few fairly good players go, including Aït-Nouri as one example. So one of the theories that went around was, well, they've given him another contract in order to sort of sate him, in order to say, no, we do have confidence in you. We didn't show it in the transfer window, but we do have this confidence. And that was an overinvestment in one direction, but I think we also have an example of an overinvestment in the opposite direction. And that is specifically referring to the situation at Nottingham Forest. And you all knew that was going here, I think, because they started the season with Nuno. Having qualified for the Europa League last season, technically they qualified for the Europa Conference League, but the weird Palace stuff meant that they ended up in the Europa. Had a reasonable-ish start to the season. Admittedly, it wasn't perfect. The transfer business was also not perfect because they had Morgan Gibbs-White that looked like he'd been sold, ended up staying on a new contract where the Forest fans were all kind of like, yeah, look, see, we're the big boys now. When in reality, it felt like Morgan Gibbs-White signed a new contract at gunpoint. But aside from all of that stuff, things got a little bit worse organisationally when Nuno had a little bit of a fallout with Marinakis and Nuno got fired for reasons? I don't know. And then they're like, okay, cool, what do we do as a replacement? We get Ange in. Ange was a completely opposite sort of tactical setup to Nuno. Ange's very attacking, Nuno is very solid, at least that's the sort of theory behind it. So these very defensive players aren't able to do the very attacking stuff, which I would call a little bit of an issue, to be honest with you, for Nottingham Forest. And now today there have been rumours that Ange is not necessarily going to keep his job at Forest for long, and there's a fairly significant chance that he could instead be replaced by Sean Dyche, which is dragging them back in that defensive direction. This is why I'm happy that we stuck with our manager, because that sort of tactical inconsistency that goes from defensive system to attacking system, well, you've gone to an attacking system, now you're getting pulled apart. Okay, let's go to a defensive system again. Cool. Different type of defence, which means that your players aren't really drilled in that in terms of attacking. They're not quite ready for what Dyche does, because let's be honest, Morgan Gibbs-White doesn't scream Dyche ball to me. You get in a very complicated situation, and Leeds fans have already seen this very same situation. When we went from Marcelo Bielsa, who we were told, okay, very high pressing, aggressive football, all this kind of stuff, to Jesse Marsch, we were told that that was a sort of simple continuity thing and it makes sense and all this kind of stuff. When the reality of the situation was, Bielsa likes to have a lot of possession, it's just when he wins the ball back, he uses it quickly. Jesse Marsch doesn't like possession that much. He likes winning the ball back and trying to have a shot within 8 seconds. Even little tactical transitions like that can cause problems to established, firmly set in their ways squads, and whilst we did survive that first season with Marsch, that wasn't really sustainable in the long run. And I feel like doing something with getting rid of Daniel Farke and getting in Mourinho or whatever names people were shouting in the summer would have been a similar mistake, to say, I'm sure that they can do exactly the same job as one another. Well, now we've got an entire squad that has been partially built, well, entirely built for one manager, because there's not that much left of the original Premier League era. I say original Premier League, you know what I mean, the Bielsa, Marsch, Allardyce gang. You've got a squad that's built for one guy and suddenly you're drafting in another guy. That's going to cause problems. And I feel like the 49ers were clever enough to sort of realise, okay, he might not have that track record in the Premier League, but there's plenty of time during a season to make a decision on that, as opposed to doing so pre-season and potentially causing a lot more discord within the squad. And I think that has absolutely paid off, in my opinion. And I'm very, very glad to see it, honestly. A lot of people will sort of approach it and be like, yeah, of course you're glad to see it, you've been proven right. It's not even from that perspective. It's from the perspective of, I want to see my football club doing as well as I feasibly can. And if this helps us to do that, beautiful. We love to see it. And the moment things start going wrong, I cannot wait for something like this to come back and bite me in the arse. Anyway, that was a little bit of an unscripted video kind of vibe. I'm a little bit curious what people think. Let me know in the comments down below. That'd be absolutely wonderful. If you enjoyed, please pop a like on it, subscribe. You can even be a channel member if you fancy. It's $2.99 a month. You get a bunch of stuff early. I'm experimenting on just shifting around formats of things, so have a bit of patience with me for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, but I'll basically let you know what a planned schedule kind of thing is in the coming days, because I kind of want to get your feedback. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you later. Toodaloo.